Yo, Quentin Grimes is saying F the narrative. I'm about to talk about exactly how he's doing it and why you and I should be doing it too. Coming up next, right here on Riding with the Knicks. Welcome back to Riding with the Knicks. This is the channel where we talk about the team that we love and sometimes the team that we hate to love, the New York Knicks. The season as it unfolds and the deeper themes that we can pull out of the season to apply to our lives to become the best version of ourselves. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you to everybody who's been watching my videos over the first 2 months of us launching this channel. And for those of you who have not hit subscribe yet, I'm just gonna take a quick second to just invite you to hit subscribe. It's a small commitment for you, but it means a lot to me as a creator. We are on the road to 500. We're closing in on 200 now. And when we hit 250, I'm going to announce some promotions where I'm going to be giving away some merch from your other favorite Knicks creators. But enough of that for right now. Let's get into the topic of today's video, which is Quentin Grimes and how he is saying F the narrative. So in this video, we're going to talk about three things. I'm going to talk about what do I mean when I say the narrative? What narrative are we talking about? 2, how is Quentin Grimes rejecting that narrative? And then 3, of course, we got to make it practical. We got to make it personal for you and for me. How does this apply to us? And how should we be saying F the narrative in an effective way in our lives? So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. So let's get in right from the jump to the narrative. What am I talking about the narrative? The narrative that I'm talking about in this video is Tibbs doesn't play the youth. Okay, so Tibbs has a reputation about not playing youth, about being too committed to veterans, about being too committed to a small lineup, about running guys into the ground, not spreading minutes around. All of those things are a narrative, but they also come from truth. So the narratives in your life, the narratives in my life, like they might be based loosely on some person's interpretation of the truth. And some narratives have some element of truth to them. And so when I talk about Tibbs not playing the youth, I'm acknowledging that there's a real situation there. But there's also some evidence to show that he does play the youth. He has played Quickly, even though Quickly's been sporadic at times. He has played Mitchell Robinson. He, of course, plays R.J. Barrett. He plays these guys. He doesn't play them as many minutes as we'd like. And I think the narrative is really taking hold in the Knicks fan base, me included, around Julius Randle and Obi Toppin. Julius Randle has had a tragic fall from grace, and Obi Toppin is beloved to the fans, but he's not getting any playing time, and we're putting that mainly on Tibbs and mainly on Randle and Tibbs' commitment to Randle. Now, that's a real situation, and I want Obi to get more minutes too. But there's also a narrative there. You know, we're also developing Obi Toppin. There's also a reason why he might not be getting minutes based on the things we see as fans on the court and the things we don't see because we're not in the organization. And so the narrative that I want to talk about is Tibbs doesn't play the youth. Let's move on to the next part. The next part of the video is how is Quentin Grimes basically said F the narrative. Okay, so Quentin Grimes is a second-round draft pick. This is his rookie season, but he's getting more and more and more minutes, and he's getting big-time minutes, especially last night in the loss to the Cavs. And it's the thing is that when he shoots some bricks from 3, he doesn't get yanked from the game. And so that's something that we need to look at. Why? The question is why? How has he done this? How has he worked himself as a second-round draft pick into big minutes for a coach who's notorious for not playing rookies, definitely not playing rookies from the second round, and not playing guys big minutes? You know, or not playing rookies big minutes when he does bring them in. How has Quentin Grimes done this? And I believe it's because he said F the narrative. So he has said, I don't care what people say about the way that Coach Tibbs coaches his team, makes his lineups, makes his rotations, gives guys opportunities. I can't control all that. What I can control as Quentin Grimes is me. And so as fans, we look at the Obi situation and we're like, it's an injustice. It's an injustice. And we're right to a degree. And there are other injustices in the world that people are decrying and shouting out, saying this is not right, this is not just. And they're right. But what has Quentin Grimes done with that situation? He said, I can only control me. And so there's some different responses to narratives. Sometimes we say F the narrative and F all the rules that go along with it. And that turns into basically like anarchy or revolutions. Some people say, I'm a slave to the narrative. It is what it is. I can't change it, which is partially true. You can't change the parts of the narrative that you have no control over. And so people can they can go between those types of extremes. F everything, or I'm a slave to it, I have no control. But what I believe Quentin Grimes has done is said, there is a narrative, I can't control part of it, but there is a part that I can control. And so he's saying, F the narrative, it's not going to control me. But he's also saying there are some rules of the league, the team, this coach's system, that if I want to excel, I have to play by those rules. Hard defense, being ready when called upon, knocking down your shots, putting in extra work when nobody else is watching. And I believe that's the path that Quentin Grimes has chosen, and we're seeing it pay off. Because we're out there saying, like, why is Fournier getting so many minutes? Why are Burks getting so many minutes? You know, all these guys that really Tibbs, that is part of the truth of the narrative. Tibbs is going to gravitate towards these vets. But Quentin Grimes has said, I can control me, and I'm not going to be a slave to the narrative, but I'm also not going to say F everything in the whole system and say it's unfair. I'm going to say these are the things that I have control over. I'm going to play by the rules to be really an outlier, if you would, in the narrative, and to blaze my own path. And so for you watching, and for me, what is the part 3 of the video that like we can take out and apply to our lives? And hopefully it's clear by this point. There are narratives that are outside of your control in this world. And some of them are horrible. Like some of them are completely dehumanizing. Some of them are unfair, and people are standing up against them, but people are also standing by and letting them happen. And we can also fall into those 3 categories where we say, F the system, burn it down, there's nothing good about it. Or we could say, on the other side, it is what it is. I have no control over it. I'm a slave to the system. I'm a robot in this system, and it is what it is. But what my encouragement for you, what my admonishment is for you, what my plea is for you today, is to find that middle path, to find that path that Quentin Grimes said, that said, you know what? There are some actual value in some of these rules and some of these structures. Whether I disagree with the narrative or not, these are the rules of the game. And I'm going to commit to playing by those rules, but rejecting the narrative that's trying to hold me back and hold me down. And when you do that, it's not anarchy, it's not revolution, it's self-determination, it's self-respect, it's self-confidence, and it's freedom. It's real freedom, because you're saying, I do have choice, I do have impact, I do have rights, I do have ability, and I do have a way to write my own story. And so this is not a video bashing how Obi's dealt with the situation. He's got a different guy ahead of him in the lineup, in the rotation. He's got his own situation, and he's done a lot of things that make the fan base love him. And I'm about that too. This is really about Quentin Grimes. So huge hats off to Quentin Grimes. Thank you for not only showing us how you plan to work for the team during your career with the Knicks, but also demonstrating for us something of such value for us to pull out of the game and apply to our own lives. And so I just want to say thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't hit subscribe, I invite you again to hit subscribe. We're on the road to 500, and when we get to 250, I'm going to start announcing some promotional giveaways of some merch from some other creators that is really some awesome stuff. We don't have merch on this channel yet. We're a small channel. We might get there someday, but in this time, how do we pull in some other creators who have some great stuff? And so more about that coming soon. But as always, I'm going to be riding with the Knicks. Let's go, Knicks.